Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Sorry if I don't look super presentable right now because I'm basically fresh off a plane from Japan to Australia. Basically, I spent the last 2 weeks in Japan. I sort of did a few posts on Instagram about it and sort of teased it because I did the Sanji SH Figure Arts YouTube short. But anyway, I spent the last 2 weeks in Japan. Bought a lot of things, did a lot of things, and thought that instead of doing live vlogging type stuff or just recording what I was doing, I thought I would record snippets of what I did, photos of what I did, and do just some sort of summary blog at the end of the whole thing, which is what this is. So I'm pretty much fresh off the plane, which is why I look the way that I do right now. But I thought I'd talk about the holiday while it was fresh in my mind. So spent about 2 weeks in Japan. We won't talk about every single day, but we will talk about most of what happened. So this is my first trip in the last 4 or 5 years to Japan, so definitely pre all the crazy business. But this was the first sort of major year that I'd say Japan was sort of open for business from January to December. Whereas they did open last year, but it was sort of in the back end of the year, so sort of getting accustomed to everything again. But this was sort of the first year where I felt everything was in full swing. Went during autumn before Halloween, and I thought it would be a nice period and not super busy, nothing crazy going on, so I thought it'd be fine. Spoiler alert, it was still incredibly busy. Anyway, so I went during autumn around early October for 2 weeks just to experience the country, just because it's been so long since I was last there. There were some things that I wanted to do, like Universal Studios Japan, in particular the Super Nintendo World. Wanted to visit the Kirby Cafe, shop around Akihabara, just anime shopping in general. A bunch of different experiences. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, day one. We left for Japan as me and some friends. Left at the night and arrived very early in the morning at Haneda Airport. From there, we sort of tried to figure out what to do and ended up going to Ikebukuro. And thankfully, Australia to Japan doesn't have terrible jet lag in terms of like time delay. There's only a difference of about 1 to 2 hours depending on if it's daylight savings time or not. So if you sleep at night on the plane, you'll wake up in the morning in Japan and it'll be pretty fine. Or if you have a day flight, it'll be sort of nighttime when it should be nighttime. There isn't that much of a big sort of punch to the gut like a lot of other places with time delays. So anyway, we felt fairly okay enough to do some exploring. So we went to Ikebukuro, which is a pretty central district for like anime goods and things like that. In particular, targeted towards women with a lot of BL and things like that. But if you're a guy, you can be into that too. Not going to judge. Anyway, thought it'd be a good place to start. There's some decent anime shopping to do there. There's some stuff to see. And I thought it'd be a good sort of start to the trip. We went to some crane game places. I tried and failed miserably at basically every single crane game I tried. The only thing I could win was from just a standard gacha capsule machine where you're always guaranteed to win. But any sort of crane game, I just was not good at it. Every time I got close, failed miserably. There's a Luffy figure that I ended up buying straight out because I had spent probably the equivalent of 50 Australian dollars just trying to get it. And I just bit the bullet in the end, and it was not a nice pill to swallow. Yeah, so we went around Ikebukuro, saw the giant Pokemon Center in Sunshine City. They've got a lot of cool sort of Pokemon displays inside and outside of the store, so that was neat. I managed to stumble across, I think it was a Namco Bandai store, Bandai Namco store. Anyway, they were selling One Piece cards, so I bought a box of the newest set there because it was the proper retail price, and that was really cool. I opened it that night. Didn't really get much, but it was really cool to buy a box of One Piece cards then and there. And they did also have a really cool display there for a lot of the cards and special cards and everything like that. And we also saw an actual like Ichiban Kuji store. And if you don't know what Ichiban Kuji is, I will try and do a video explaining what that is, but basically it's an instant win lottery type thing. And they hold them throughout different stores in Japan, different anime stores, 7-Elevens, Lawson's, convenience stores. Just pretty much every single store's got something like this. And it's called Ichiban Kuji, or Kuji, which means lottery. So there's different brands and things like that. Anyway, I found an actual Ichiban Kuji store, which is one that's actually run by the company that produces all these. So they had a wide range of products and everything like that. Have them all out on display, and you basically pull random tickets. Those tickets will correlate to a prize that you win, and then they'll take you to that shelf and you can choose the prize for if there is a choice. So anyway, I tried a few tickets of that. I think it was a Dragon Ball Z one and a Gundam one, and I managed to snag a Gundam, so that was cool. And basically the rest of the day was just anime shopping around Ikebukuro, going to the world's largest Animate. Japan's largest Animate. I think it's only a Japan brand. I could be wrong on that, who knows. Anyway, went to the largest Animate in Japan, and it was something like 10 floors or something like that of massive amounts of anime. Again, most of it targeted towards women, but there is a wider range as well. So I saw some cool stuff for like Nikkei, Blue Archive, stuff like that. And I do play both of those games, but sort of not crazily enough to want a lot of merch from those franchises. So that saved me there. The next day was a Shinkansen, so a bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka, where we'd be spending a bulk of the trip. So the first day in Osaka, we sort of tried to get our bearings, went around the Dotonbori area, the Kuromon Market area, Denden Town. There's a lot to see, and it's all pretty walkable, to be honest, and that's a lot better than sort of like central Tokyo, where you need to take a train everywhere, even if it's one stop away, just because it's just too dense, too big, very, very easy to get lost. But yeah, so first day just going around Dotonbori, Denden, Kuromon, just sort of getting our bearings. Stayed near Kuromon, so it's pretty central to a lot of like cool food places and things like that. I did really like that the toilet in our Airbnb was like a really, really fancy one. So as you approach it, it would open up, which is cool. I like stuff like that. Went around some anime shops there, saw a lot of these glass display anime stores where people will rent out a box and sell their products secondhand, where they basically determine the price. And if you're willing to spend the amount, you just write down a number or the case, whatever it is, on a piece of paper, hand it to the staff, and they'll go and grab it for you. And a lot of these prices seemed a little bit higher than they should be, and I started to get an idea of how the rest of this trip would go, because previous trips, just anime merch was cheap because it's plentiful and easy to move and things like that. But tourism is such a huge factor right now in Japan. It's always been a huge factor, but it's even more so right now. And a lot of the central anime districts are like overpopulated with foreign tourists. And I had a sense of things that because of this, a lot of locals understood that they could probably charge a bit higher for their products if you didn't know any better. And I started to get a sense of that in Osaka, and I definitely got a sense of that in Tokyo. And while it wasn't a terribly huge problem, it was noticeable, and I'm not a fan of it, especially with how much it happens. Anyway, in some of these glass displays, there were prices that were higher than they should be, but there were also some interesting things like fully repainted figures, where they're done in like anime styles, or adding extra effect, or making them just look better instead of straight machine paint. And it is cool to see something a bit different. Anyway, we also saw like a Tamashii Nations display in one of the major stores in Denden Town, and it was really, really cool. There's so many cool SH Figuarts Zeros from a few years back, even like way further back. cool displays of like diorama style of mixing and matching different brands like Uma Musume, Chainsaw Man, things like that to make a sort of like cohesive diorama. It's really cool. Love the stuff that they were doing with like the Naruto Dragon Ball Z ones, what they did with a lot of the Chainsaw Man stuff. The Guts Berserk display was so cool. There were so many Gutses and so many cool dynamic poses. It really, really, really made me want to SH Figuarts Guts. Very hard to find right now. Hard to find even in Japan just because he's so sought after. And new Berserk stuff like flies off the shelves. Up until now, a lot of the food has been pretty like freeform of like going to convenience stores or just anything that's on the way. We sort of just sat in a random restaurant that night and had a nice Hamburg steak, so that was really cool. The next day was Universal Studios Japan. Now this one I was really, really looking forward to. I booked tickets on Klook. This is not sponsored in any way. I booked tickets on Klook because I heard it was really good. The actual entry tickets were very good. Everything worked very smoothly. My problem was with the express passes. Now, to gain access to a lot of the major attractions in Universal Studios, like the Super Nintendo World, you need to get an additional ticket. And this additional ticket is free. It's called a timed entry ticket, where once you have your physical ticket and enter the park, you can load up the Universal Studios Japan app, scan your ticket, and then slot in a time to enter the exhibit, assuming there's still spaces. So they'll allocate you a time and you need to be there at that time to enter. Once you leave, you need another ticket, and chances are you're not going to get another ticket once you leave. Anyway, I bought the express passes in advance through Klook for Super Nintendo World. And so like the thing is that you can get the express pass, which will already allocate you a time to go on that day and give you a time to go for some of the attractions so you can speed ahead of the lines. So it's meant to make things way faster, way easier. The problem with ordering through Klook for the express pass is they will randomly give you a time on that day. So Universal Studios Japan opens around like 8:30 a.m. to like 9 at night or something like that. The express pass that I bought had the timed entry into Nintendo World, the express time to enter Nintendo World at 8 p.m. And the attractions at the exact same time, and the attractions lasting about half an hour. And there are multiple shops in the Nintendo World, and crazy lines and things like that. So if I were to make this work, you'd have to enter and not shop, just go to the attraction and that's it. Even the express pass, when I was there, and it was very, very busy, the express pass line was probably like 15 to 20 minutes. And that was fast. For everyone else, it was like 2 hours. It was like an hour to 2 hours, and it was ridiculous. So what we ended up doing was we entered at opening, hoping that we could get an early pass in, because that's the strategy that you see online. We entered pretty much right at opening, did the timed entry thing, and their time was 6 p.m. That was the earliest time we could get. Now, I didn't want to spend the entire day at the park, and I felt bad that I sort of forced my friends to stay at the park the entire time. But there was other stuff to do. There was a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen stuff. There was some nice collab stuff. There's some good food around. But it's a big ask to wait basically 10 hours or so at a park. And then for an attraction that you'll then have to wait for. I did not like this system at all. I really, really highly recommend not doing it and somehow figuring out a way to order through the USJ official website, because that lets you actually choose a time to enter the timed entry things. They don't accept international visas, but I'm sure there's some way around it. But as it stands now, I think that the Klook method for the express passes is awful. Like, actually bad. Because you cannot choose a time and you can be screwed and have like this time at 8 p.m. that you can't do anything with. By the time we got in at 6 p.m. for the earlier time, it took us until like 8:30 to actually just do 2 rides. We couldn't try any of the food, we could barely shop. took us that long to do everything because everything was so jam-packed. You couldn't do any of the mini attractions. There were lines to do just the standard, like, oh, tap on the wall with your wristband for a sticker. There were lines for things like that. And it was just actually disgusting. And I think that they should have had like an actual limit on people to get into that attraction and let people out and then let more people in. Because the flow of just letting people in when it's their time and not kicking people out made it so hard to move around and so frustrating to do anything in that park, and it actually ruined the day, especially since we were there the whole time. So I didn't really enjoy Nintendo World. The park itself was actually quite good, and when they opened the Donkey Kong exhibit, I can only imagine this is going to get worse. This was an off-peak time. There's nothing going on right now. Like, they were starting up the Halloween Horror Nights, but that happens every single night. And that was at night and separate to Nintendo World, and it was still just so much and so frustrating. And I was just not a fan of that at all. And I just don't know any way around it besides finding a way to book an earlier ticket. Yeah, you need to line up. Also, I just wanted to make it clear that Osaka, like the Universal Studios, was still really cool, and the Mario World is really, really cool, just that it's so freakishly busy that if you want to do it, you have to go really, really early, because the attractions are definitely worth it. The Mario Kart thing is so cool, but it lasts so little that you shouldn't have to wait 2 hours for something like that. It is really, really cool, don't get me wrong. but I don't think that the time waiting or the lines or any of the mess was worth it. So I just wanted to make that clear, that I did really enjoy the stuff that was actually there, but everything else was not worth it. Anyway, as annoying as that was, the next day was Kobe. So it's just a simple day trip from Osaka. You don't need to do bullet train or anything like that. And I wanted to try A5 Kobe beef in Kobe. I wanted the best steak of my life, so I could know what the ceiling is, so I know that I can never get better than that. I just think it's funny. Since trying Kobe, I do know that there's other high-grade beefs and things like that out there, but Kobe is one of the highest ones, and it's just something, a bucket list type of thing that I wanted to do. So anyway, went to Kobe, went to a place called, I think it's Ishinari Steak? No, it was Kobe Beef Ishida. And they let you book in English. The menu and everything like that is in English. They present everything to you and tell you what it is. And I think it's very foreigner friendly, but it also doesn't feel like you're missing out on quality. So it's a multi-course meal. I think you can just get the steak if you want, but it's a multi-course meal. I barely took any photos because I was so engrossed in what was going on. But basically I had an A5 cut as well as 2 A4 cuts. And everything was absolutely amazing. It's exactly what I wanted out of this experience. Really, really good food, really nice atmosphere, cool meals. Seeing the food prepared right in front of you was nice. Had some delicious sashimi, which is great because normally I'm pretty adverse to fish in general. But that was really, really good. Everything was just fantastic. Highly, highly recommend doing something like that. Afterwards, walked around Kobe and went to the Kobe Art Museum. There's a specific name for it. I think it's Aota or something like that. Anyway, it's the Kobe Art Aquarium. And just wanted to check out an aquarium. And while we were there, it turns out they were doing a Final Fantasy collaboration, and it was Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. And they did this cool, crazy display playing Final Fantasy Crystal music and crazy lights and battle themes in just like this weird, like, big fishbowl in the center of the room with flashing lights and everything. Fish don't know what's going on. But it was cool nonetheless. A lot of the other attractions in there were nice, and there was also a Final Fantasy themed gift shop, which was cool as well. Then that night we went to a maid cafe. I'm not big on maid cafes, they're awkward. And I think it's a fun experience to do, absolutely, but it's not a me thing. I do think it is worth doing, and I do think it's worth doing with new people just to see how they react to it, but it's just not my thing. But I'm happy to be present there to see it unfold. It's weird to describe. But yeah, went to a maid cafe. It was At Home Cafe. And I now have a member card there. It's kind of funny. But yeah, it's a maid cafe. It's kind of cringy, kind of weird. I look kind of dead in the little like photo that they printed out for me, but yeah, it is what it is. Fun enough way to cap off the day. Then the next day was just exploring around Denden Town, because we've been checking it out sort of every night, but a lot of stuff's closed by the time we do it, so full day dedicated to Denden Town and just shopping in general. Cool stuff. I bought a little bit of Nikkei, bought some soundtracks, some games, things like that. Saw this amazing shop that had all these retro Transformers, but they don't have a website, and I decided not to buy anything there because I still had to get to Tokyo and I didn't want to take a huge suitcase full of Transformers or just boxes with me to Tokyo, carrying them for several other legs of the trip. So I decided not to buy anything there, and I regret it because I didn't see any other really cool Transformers for the rest of the trip. But you live and learn. Then that night was a little bit of exploring Dotonbori at night because the Osaka lights, and then a bit of that was exploring Dotonbori at night because the lights along the street are beautiful, and it was raining, so it makes the light glisten even better. It's really, really cool. I quite like that. And then I went off somewhere. I think I went back to Denden Town that night by myself and bought just some more random crap. And then I had some McDonald's for dinner, and that was nice. I had the Samurai Mac, which is original to Japan. And yeah, it's just nice. It feels better than a regular Macca's burger. The next day was a Kyoto day trip, so you can get to Kyoto pretty easily from Osaka and vice versa depending on where you're staying. But just a little bit of exploring around Kyoto. We went to Honnoji Temple, Honnoji Castle, I can't really remember. I think it was Honnoji. It's the recreation of, I think it was the castle where Nobunaga's final stand was or something like that. I can't really remember, but this was a nice little area, quiet, nothing too crazy going on. They had a beautiful display of swords and armor, and you couldn't take photos in the actual exhibit, but it was really, really cool, and I liked learning what I could from the limited English that they had available and the limited Japanese that I have. Speaking of limited Japanese, I do recommend learning a little bit if you are going to go to Japan, like simple things or understanding what's being said to you, because it'll just go a very, very long way. I've just been doing Duolingo sort of every day as refresher to make sure that I know the alphabet so I can read basic things as well as key phrases, and that was enough to get me by most of the way. After the temple, we did some street food in Kyoto. I had a choco banana. That was delicious. I had some karage. I didn't take a photo of that, but it was also delicious. And I had ichigo ame. It's basically strawberries on a stick, and they're candied, and they were freaking delicious. So good. And then we went back to Osaka and went to Shinsekai, which is like another shopping district in Osaka. It was nice at night. Had some kushikatsu, which is basically just like fry anything and batter it on a stick. It was pretty good. Then the next day was we went to Nagoya for a day because I heard of an all-you-can-eat KFC, and while I do know that there are other all-you-can-eat KFCs around Japan, I heard that Nagoya's is particularly good. So, for some reason I decided let's devote an entire day and travel to Nagoya, actually staying the night there and everything like that. But when we went to Nagoya, I actually really liked the atmosphere there. It's a more laid-back Japan. The skyline isn't as high, the buildings are a bit more unique, the people are a bit more relaxed. You can actually see like a litter on the streets, which isn't like a nice thing, but it's like everything is so pristine and clean at all times in 90% of Japan that it was nice to have like a slightly more like friendly, relaxed atmosphere. There were less foreigners, there was less English, but it was still fine getting around. So Nagoya, they had this dish called itsumi boshi or something like that. It's a eel-based dish, so unagi. And it's that and miso katsu are the two dishes that Nagoya is known for, as far as I know. There might be a bit more. But anyway, we had itsumi boshi. First time having eel, and it was freaking delicious. It was amazing. I loved it so much. So good. The next day I had a buffet breakfast that had unagi as part of it, so I had some more. It's so good. Ridiculously good. But anyway, that night we went to the all-you-can-eat KFC in Nagoya. And it's about what you expect. It's all-you-can-eat KFC. Unlimited fried chicken, tenders, nuggets, things like that. But they also have salads, pastas, baked chicken, desserts, curry, onion soup. It was actually really, really good. and you're given like, it's like 80 minutes or something like that for however much you pay. And I don't remember it being that expensive, and you can get a lot done in 80 minutes. It's just really, really good and fresh and delicious, and it tastes how you expect because it's KFC, but the unique stuff to it was really interesting. And I just enjoyed the whole thing, really. And I don't think it's a reason to go to Nagoya to try, but if you just happen to be there, you might as well try it. I do know that there are other all-you-can-eat KFCs around Japan, but I know that the Nagoya one is a good one because I've heard some so-so things on some of the others. And next up is Tokyo. So we went back to Tokyo on the Shinkansen, and that's where we spent the rest of our trip. So the first day was exploring a bit of Tokyo Station. I went to the Kirby Cafe Petite, which is basically a pop-up shop of Kirby Cafe. They've got unique items there, as well as some of the same items as the actual cafe has, and unique desserts that you can buy there. Previously, you had to pre-book to actually go in, or pre-book to buy cakes. There is still a limit on how many cakes you can buy, but when I went, it was fine. And I bought, it was like a pudding and a tiramisu, and both of them come in these cute little like jars and cups. The tiramisu looks like Kirby fell into it, and the pudding is like got Kirby's face on it, and it's all pink, so it looks really nice. That was cute. Went to the jump shop there, a few other shops there. It's just cool, nice, and then we found our way to our accommodation, which was sort of suburbia of Japan, not too far from Shinjuku, so that was cool. It was a very, very small accommodation, didn't take any videos of it. That night we went to Shibuya Parko, saw the Capcom store, the Pokemon store there. I don't remember what else was in there. There was a jump shop in there. There's the Nintendo store. The Nintendo store was pretty cool, very, very, very busy, hard to get around, but they had a lot of merch that you wouldn't normally see, which was cool. They had some statues, which I kind of wanted to buy, but not for the price they were asking. But it was still cool nonetheless. I really enjoyed it. For whatever reason, I decided to buy the Mario movie soundtrack there. But yeah, whatever. And then that's pretty much it. We went to an izakaya for dinner. It was nice. Just standard izakaya food. All food in Japan was good. Just didn't really have any bad experiences, really. Then the next day we went to Tokyo Skytree to try the actual Kirby Cafe. Very hard to book tickets unless you're very fast or you check every single day for cancellations. It's a whole annoying process. There's a bunch of videos on how to do it. Even the website sort of roughly explains how it's done. It's just a pain, and you've got to be quick. But anyway, we were able to get into the Kirby Cafe. I was able to book way in advance, so that was nice, and we ate a lot. There were some really good dishes for a like collab cafe type, for a themed cafe. It's really good food. Like, not the best food I've ever had, but for themed cafe, very, very good. So there's omurice, caprese salads, there's a burger set that had pasta and like potato gems, wedges, and like a corn soup. That was nice. There's cappuccinos, there was this sweet potato wedge thing that had ice cream on the side. That was nice. There's this little, it's called a Loco Moco, but it comes in this cute little Kirby lunchbox. There's the car-shaped dessert that was really nice. Just everything was good there. It was weirdly one of the most expensive days next to Kobe for food, but it was nice, and you get to take a lot of stuff home if you want. And I enjoyed that. Then I think there's a jump shop in Parko as well, and another Pokemon store in Parko, so I did some shopping there. There's a Kirby Cafe store that is only for patrons of the Kirby Cafe, as well as an actual Kirby Cafe store inside the building in case you didn't get bookings for the actual Kirby Cafe, and they sell different stuff in each one. That's a bit weird, but yeah, it was cool. Then after that we went to Asakusa. Weirdly, I've never been to Asakusa before, and it was busy, but like manageable, because if you get off the main street and go into the side streets, it's very quiet, but there's still really cool stuff going on. So that was nice, had a bit of street food, some melon pan. There's like a photo of me looking just dead inside. But yeah, no, Sakasa was quite nice. I can't remember what we had for dinner that night. But then the next day we went to Akihabara. Akihabara was, it looks nice, but it's not nearly as good as I think it used to be. And this comes back to what I said before about tourism. The prices on things are just disgusting. Because normally, like a standard prize figure, like a crane game prize will be like 1,000 to 2,000 yen, or like 800 yen to 2,000 yen, something like that. It's pretty cheap, especially if it's new and it's plentiful. A lot of the new ones were like 16 to 23-ish, and I was like, oh, that's fine. But there's two Gear 5 Luffy figures that were floating around, and we saw quite often. And they were going for like minimum 3,000, and that was like the cheapest we ever saw it. I saw consistently places 5,000 yen, 6,000 yen, 9,000 yen. These are the equivalents of like $70, $80, $90, even $100. There were some Ichiban Kuji figures that we saw for like $300-400. There were some scale figures that had just come out that the local price in Australia was $400, and they were selling it the equivalent to $400 in Japan. And that was disgusting. A lot of more of those glass cabinet, like anyone decides the price, just absolutely insane numbers that they're asking for, thousands of dollars for figures you could buy next door for like maybe even a quarter of that. It's just like ridiculous. It's like if you don't look around, you will get scammed, and it is really, really sad. But it is cool to look around because it is a really cool looking area. There's a lot of stuff to do, and there's some cool street food there. If you like crane games, there's plenty of crane games. If you like figures, there's a lot to see. I just really don't like the price hiking thing. It's just really bothersome. There were some standard price figures that had come out like that week that we found in one store for like 1,600 yen, and then the next store had it 5,000 yen, and it's just like, what is going on? You could win this for like 200 yen at the crane games next door. I had terrible luck, so I wasn't even going to try, but it's still like, it just blew my mind that this is what was going on. Went into the main Tamashii Nation store, which is half museum, half store. They changed the display from like Dragon Ball recently to Gundam, and while I really like Gundam, I would have liked to see the Dragon Ball one as well, but it was still really, really cool. And yeah, just kept shopping around Akihabara. Went to the Ami store. I order a lot from Ami, so it was cool seeing it. They had a lot of the new products that had just gone up on pre-order around that week on display to see the prototypes and things like that, and that was cool. I really enjoyed that. I was somehow able to find an SH Figuarts Guts in Ami, even though it's sold out on the website. I'm guessing it's because the traffic is just too bad on there that they were doing like in-store only. And that was cool. I was able to pay retail for them. But yeah, they just had some nice figures. The KFC in Akihabara was dressed up in Halloween, like the Colonel, and that was cool. A bunch of stores just with cool displays. There's some cool hobby shops with repainted Gundams and things like that, just showing like what a lot of the customers can do, or like prize winners and things like that. I always enjoy stuff like that. So yeah, that was as much as I complained about the price hiking, I did buy the most there because I did find some deals. You just really, really have to hunt for it. Then the next day we went to Sanrio Land. I'm not a big Sanrio guy, but I was just there with my friends. It's a nice enough place, really. It's just not really my thing, but there was enough to do that I felt like that I was pretty satisfied with it. The music numbers that they do in pretty much like half of the entire place was just like really elaborate and really cool. It just happened almost spontaneously. That was cool. There's a bit to do there, and if you're a big Sanrio fan, there's a lot to do there. There's also like 4 or 5 different restaurants in that same thing and tons outside. It's kind of neat. Then the next day I went by myself to do something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, which is see a life-size Gundam. Every single trip to Japan that I've been 4 times now. Every single trip, something has gotten in my way to seeing the life-size Gundam. There were times where plans didn't align, I was too far out of the way, we were in a completely different area as we were leaving, things like that, or wasn't familiar enough to get there. But then the last trip, I had booked everything, gotten everything ready, and then was horribly ill and couldn't go. But this time I was like, no, I need to go, especially to the Walking Gundam, because they threaten to tear it down every single year, and I wasn't going to let that happen this time. So I saw the Walking Gundam because I kept missing out, so I made my way to Yokohama, which was actually pretty fun, got to see some cool sights. Accidentally walked into Chinatown instead of the Yamashita Park where I was meant to go. It's basically like a left or a right turn, and I went left. But I eventually found my way and got to see the life-size Walking Gundam, and it was so cool. I didn't fully understand what was going on just because it's all in Japanese. There are English instructions to sort of show you what the dialogue is that's going on, but it's a really, really cool show, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I also bought the ticket to go up to the observation deck so you can watch the show right next to the Gundam, which is very cool, but the angle is kind of crap, really, because you're seeing it from the back and to the side. And I am terrified of heights, so this footage that you're seeing is as good as it's going to get. But again, you only see it from the back and the sides. There is a part of the show where he looks directly sort of at you, but again, I didn't want to do that because I was too scared, so the most you can get is just RX-78's head just turning a little bit to the side, and it looks really cool. The side profile is fantastic. Loved seeing it up close, as scared as I was. But the other cool thing is once you gain entry into the area, you can go to the Gundam shop, the Gundam cafe, the Gundam Yokohama museum. And so I did the little museum. It's cool. You get to see a machine build a little Gunpla. There's all bits and pieces of like how the design worked, who headed it, how all this came to be, and it was really cool. I like that. And you get to see like big parts, like how big a single part of this whole mechanism is, and it's just really nice to see that. The cafe was cool, but it was too busy for me to go there, so I grabbed something quick at one of the small food vendors, which also has slightly themed stuff. But the other major part is the Gundam Base Yokohama, which is the exclusive Gundam store there. And they sell exclusive merchandise, and I was early enough that nothing had sold out, but I was running out of suitcase space at this point, so I wanted a souvenir, but I didn't want something giant. I did want something giant, but I couldn't fit it. So I just got the 1/144 scale Yokohama Gundam, as well as like a small Gundam as well, and some stickers for my suitcase. And that was enough, although I do want more, so if I go back again and it is still open, I might grab some. But it was really, really nice. I really like the Walking Gundam design. It seemed a little bit funny at first, but that was more just photos that I'd seen of it. But when you're there in person, the design is really cool. It's like a modernized version of RX-78, sort of like what they did with Gundam Origin. And that was really cool. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm so happy I finally got to do it. So that was another thing checked off. After that, I went back to Akihabara because that day the SH Figuarts Sanji had released, and I wanted to see if that was actually true or if I was reading the date wrong. Found him. It was cool. I was able to buy a figure on release day, and that was really cool. I went to a few of the other shops I couldn't check out before, found a few interesting things, and generally if you are willing to hunt, you can find some good stuff in Akihabara. You've just got to spend like the whole day there or two. Just coming back and forth, there's just so much to do, it's crazy. So on our last day we went to Haneda Airport because that's where our hotel was, because we're flying out really early, so it was good to swap from the Airbnb to a hotel that's attached to the airport. Some really cool shops in the airport. Didn't get to do that much because I was like, oh, I'll come back later, but by the time we came back everything was closed, which kind of sucked. But yeah, it was really nice. I do recommend that Terminal 2 Garden Shopping Center. That's cool. I like that. But then we went to Shinjuku, recreated the KFC scene in Jujutsu Kaisen because why not? Then we went to Ikebukuro again, and went to a book off there. Book offs are really good, same as Super Potatoes. Was able to find some cool games and retro soundtracks and things from those. In Book Off, in Ikebukuro, they had good prices on things, and I was finally able to get the Luffy that I was hunting for under 3,000 yen, but the amount that I spent trying to win him kind of cancelled it all out. But I was able to win in the end. That's what's important here. Then went back to Asakusa at night, and it looked really, really nice at night. Had some Baskin Robbins. Then went back to the airport, had miso katsu, which is the Nagoya other main dish, and that was absolutely delicious. That was my last dinner in Japan, and it was very, very good. And yeah, just that's pretty much it. Flew out in the morning, came in with one suitcase that was half full and left with 2 bulging suitcases and a carry-on that was like full to bursting. And yeah, it was just a really, really good trip. It was just good to be back. I liked doing a lot of the experiences in Japan more so than doing all the anime shopping. I do really, really want to go back again already, because there's some stuff that I just want to do that I didn't get a chance to do. I want to go to Miyajima again, because I've been before and it was beautiful then, and I liked that atmosphere of Japan. I want to go to Hiroshima, because I really, really love the Peace Museum and the history of that area, because it's so interesting. And I also want to go to Hokkaido. Never been to Hokkaido. I think it'd be interesting. Fukuoka, because it's meant to be more laid back. I just want to explore more of the country, because it is a very, very lovely country. And I think that in the channels that I'm sort of in, it sort of gets lost in, oh, we can do shopping there, whereas there's so much more to the country. And I want to engage more, and I want to engage more with the people and the culture, and go to festivals, do all sorts of other things. Try sushi a bit more, like proper fresh sushi and sashimi a bit more. But generally, I did way more on this trip than I expected to, way more than I hoped for, and it was just a fantastic trip from start to finish. Loved it, and I'm glad that my friends put up with me while I was doing it. But we did some of their stuff as well, and a lot of our interests overlapped, so that was good. But yeah, it was a solid trip. Highly recommend going to Japan. Try and choose a time that is not peak. It's very hard now because over-tourism is just a huge problem. It's so hard to get around in a lot of things, and when you do a lot of the major attractions, all you see are foreigners. It's like we're the problem of why it's getting like this, and it is cool that they're sort of recovering, because Japan was in a bit of a rough spot, and I think they still are. But seeing how much tourism there is and how much sort of money is coming in to the country, it seems like they're sort of back in fighting form, so that's cool. But yeah, it's a really fun country. Highly recommend going if you haven't already. If you have a passing interest in anime and things like that, or just the Japanese culture in general, highly recommend going. If you like good food, it's a great country for that. But it's exhausting if you want to do the sort of stuff that I did. Like, I was eating a lot, but I was also walking a lot, and days would start at 6 and end at 9, and we're just exhausted every single day, but it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.